Hey guys, my name is Marcus Trusty. I'm the founder of CORE based out of Buena Vista, Colorado. We're dedicated to keeping all trails open for multi-use recreation on public lands. Many of you probably saw that the draft record of decision was released last Friday for the Pike San Isabel National Forest travel management process that we've talked about extensively. We have a lot of videos on our YouTube channel if you're not familiar with that. And how things have played out. So that initiated a 45-day objection period. And if you commented and had a substantial comment at any point in the last 5 years of the process when they opened it to public commenting during scoping or during the draft environmental impact statement commenting phase, you can register an objection if something came out that you don't agree with or that you don't like. And we've been going through all of the information, looking at everything, looking at the draft, seeing how things worked out. It appears that there was some errors, that the original maps that they released with it didn't jive with the tabular data that they released with it. I believe that's been corrected. I got an email yesterday and talked to a couple of people in the Forest Service, and yeah, I don't know how that happened. I have no idea how you release a final product with errors in it and things don't match up. So anyway, we've looked through all of this. I'll be honest, it's not great. It's not terrible. It could have been worse. We have some really good resources that were put together by advisory board member Patrick McKay. So in the description of this video, wherever you're viewing it on YouTube or on social media, you will find links. You will find links to the ArcGIS database that Patrick put together and dumped all of the ArcGIS information into so that everything is displayed. It's got a really nice legend on the left-hand side that shows how all the routes are classified, and then you can zoom in and use different base maps and overlays to look at routes. So there's a link to that. Patrick also built a very comprehensive app that has taken all the Forest Service information, all the tables, all the data, dumped it into an easily readable platform so that you can search by route number or you can search by route name to see all of the scoring that the Forest Service used and all of the important information that they used associated with each route. That is also in the link in these comments. And then I'll also include the KMZ file that he created. So if you want to download that KMZ file and upload that to Google Earth so that you can display the same information that is in the ArcGIS link, you can do that as well. And the last one is we have formed the Colorado Trail Defenders group, which is a 501c4 nonprofit. That group is dedicated to the legal defense of trails. Over the past year and a half, we've engaged an attorney. We've had one on retainer through CORE, and he filed a comments during the draft environmental impact statement commenting period. He is working on objections, and I'll notate those here in a minute on what the objections are going to be. So we have a GoFundMe link for our legal funding because, again, it costs lawyer hours and time to try and put a lot of this information in to help us put all this information to distribute that to you. So far we've funded that through CORE memberships, through sponsorships, through generous donations from businesses and people in the off-road world that love trails and want to keep them open. If you would like to help us with that, with our legal funding, click on the GoFundMe link and donate there. That's largely dedicated to the gulches in Wildcat Canyon that we'll talk about. That's what our attorney has been hired for. That's what all of the money has gone to, is him and his expert opinion in working on that section. But some of the stuff that he's uncovered actually helps us in other areas of travel management and the overall PSI. So all of that has been very beneficial. If you'd like to help, click the link. So here we go. So like I said, not everything is bad news. Let's start with the good news first. I've done a lot of videos that show, corruption, misinformation, trail closures, all kinds of things. There's actually some good news in this, okay? So Williams Pass And I have another video that'll come out about all the work that we've done this summer to get that open. This was the first year in the last 6 years that Williams Pass was open for a 30-day period, the month of August. That trail is set to be a full-size motorized trail as in the record of decision here. That is very good news for us, okay? There was a chance that Williams Pass could have been closed. Williams Pass in the draft was set to be converted to a non-motorized trail. We commented heavily on that. And, you know, thanks to all of you guys who did the same. That is set to be a full-size motorized trail. So that is awesome news. We're not losing that. That will continue to be open for the future of motorized users. We have a trail adoption agreement with Forest Service and with Western Slope four-wheelers to keep that open and maintained for all of you guys. So that's awesome. Also, the trails around Mount Champion and the Half Moon area near Leadville, okay? These trails were challenged during the original lawsuit as crossing into areas in the forest plan in 3A areas. They're supposedly not supposed to allow or have motorized travel on them. So 110, FSR 110, which goes to the Champion Mill, and then the section that goes above the mill, at least to where it crosses private property up above tree line, is set to be reopened as a full-size motorized trail. 110J that takes off in that same drainage down below, which goes to the Iron Mike Mine on the backside of Mount Elbert, is set to be converted to a full-size motorized trail. So those are both wins. Those were challenged routes for legitimacy, and the anti-access groups wanted those closed and not to be allowed for motorized use any longer ever again. Those are both set to be reestablished. So that is a really good piece that has come out of this. The Slide Lake Trail in Leadville, that's one of our other adopted trails. The last like 3/10 of a mile past the 10th Mountain Hut was not on the emblem, was left off, and we pointed that out to them, commented heavily, and that was added back to the emblem. So that will be a legal part of the trail. You can see it here. There was just a gap in no man's land where, you know, it showed the road stopped at 10th Mountain Hut, but there's nothing in between where the Slide Lake hiking trail took place. That was always the road on the ground. We pointed that out very heavily, talked to several people in the Forest Service, so that has been corrected. And if it wasn't, then they could have just stopped the trail at the 10th Mountain Hut and not continued the rest of it. So that is also a good outcome for this. Clossy Lake Trail above Clear Creek Reservoir. We've got a little work to do on the end point of that, but at least the majority of the trail is set to be continued to use for motorized vehicles. The anti-motorized groups commented heavily on that, including Colorado Mountain Club and others, about how we are not capable of helping them manage that trail and that trail should be closed. They mentioned us in their comment that we can't help them, manage this trail through our trail adoption, keep users on the road, and keep it in good condition. That is absolutely false, and thankfully the Forest Service didn't go for that argument, and that trail will stay open. A couple other ones. The upper part of Geneva Creek up to the mine site is set to be added back to the emblem and be a legal route all the way up to the mine. That last section had not been open, and they had placed signs there that said that the route didn't continue past a certain point, so you couldn't finish the trail. That is also set to be corrected. And then one other one here in and around Chaffee County, if you're familiar with Bald Mountain Gulch area in Bald Mountain, that's just a little bit southeast of Buena Vista, goes off of FSR 300, which is the Bald Mountain Gulch Road, down towards the Ruby Mountain Campground boat launch area for the river. So Bald Mountain is a side road that goes up and around the top of Bald Mountain, which is a dormant extinct volcano, I guess, and is the old crater there. That was set to not be open. It's really weird. It's two parts. So you have the main part of the road that goes up off of 300 and then completes most of the loop. Then you have another segment of road that comes down and connects back to the original road to make the loop. And they had the small segment open, but not the access road that goes up and around to connect to 300. So we commented heavily on that. They actually corrected that so that whole section will continue to be open. So, those are all good things. We didn't we didn't lose or not gonna lose substantial areas in the Salida district or the Leadville district. Maybe everything's not perfect, but we feel decent about the outcome there. Lost Canyon, that was a disputed route in this. That encroached on a incorrectly drawn 3A segment of the forest plan, so that route was contested as not being consistent with the forest plan, and the anti-access groups wanted that closed. Lost Canyon is set to be reopened through this, and that claim was rejected. Obviously, there's some other issues with Lost Canyon. The emblem is not correct. It does not go to the end of the road down to the overlook of Clear Creek Reservoir, and the section that goes up toward Quail Mountain is not included in that, so that's another loose end that we need to tie up. We need to figure out how to correct that mapping error. And then a property owner lower on the road has stretched a cable across it, claiming that you can't cross his property. The Forest Service is working on that through their attorney's office, so hopefully we'll have that resolved at some point too. But at least in this travel management plan, Lost Canyon was determined to be a legitimate route. That 3A segment will be corrected to allow us to drive up to the end of the emblem, and then we'll continue working on the mapping error and figuring out how we add in the last section at least, and stay in contact with them about the legal issue with the property owner. So one more route that we're pleased to see is still open now. Red Cone was converted to a full-size motorized trail from a road. And that's not a big deal. As a full-size motorized trail, you could still take a full-size Jeep or a highway licensed vehicle on it. It won't change the way that you use the road. Just the designation for the Forest Service changes, and that dictates how they perform maintenance. So motorized trails require a lot less than an actual road does, and so they converted that to a full-size motorized trail, which is good because Colorado Parks and Wildlife for some reason commented in favor of closing that due to danger, and they didn't think it should stay open to motorized vehicles during the draft phase. And I didn't really understand that. I don't know if they were confused on what they were commenting on or not. So we responded to those comments, as did a lot of you guys. And we're pleased to see that it's still open, just being changed to a full-size motorized trail. Now, the one thing that I would note about some of these being changed to full-size motorized trails, Red Cone, we already talked about Williams. Hancock Pass is one of those too. Boulder Mountain in the Salida district. And there's a couple other ones across the entire PSI that'll be converted to full-size motorized trails. Now, what that means is that you will be required to have an OHV sticker to be able to legally use those full-size motorized trails. Those are small square stickers, usually has the date that it's good for in bold letters that you can see. Sometimes people put them on their bumpers, sometimes on the windows. You'll see those on ATVs, UTVs, motos. You will be required to have one of those for your vehicle to use full-size motorized trails. So that's something you need to be aware of. It's not a negative. Some people are upset that they have to buy an OHV sticker to use public lands. The deal is that money is earmarked for OHV-only projects, and it is managed by CPW. So for a full-size motorized trail, a group could go to CPW and say, hey, I need a grant, and write a grant proposal to maintain this trail, this motorized trail, or to put up signs or to do work on the ground, and CPW awards grants, and they only can be used for motorized-based projects. So it's money that we generate as a motorized user group, and it's money that comes back to us to maintain our trails and keep them open. So it's not a negative. The only downside is that if you have multiple vehicles, or you're a compulsive Jeep owner like me with 3 of them, that means I have to have 3 stickers, 1 for each vehicle. It's not transferable. So you stick one on this Jeep, one on that Jeep behind me, and then one over here on another one to the side. So I would have to buy 3 stickers, and I will, because that money is used in a good way. Now let's move on to some not so great news, okay, in this. So the South Park District is getting destroyed. It's really unfortunate. There's nearly 70 miles of route closures proposed in there. So all of the side roads off of Mosquito Pass, we're talking like Cooney Lake, Pirate, all the stuff on Loveland Mountain, Horseshoe Mountain, Peerless Mountain area is all getting closed or is set to on this draft record of decision. Obviously, all of Wildcat Canyon, they did not listen to any comments, and they received dozens, probably hundreds of comments from users to keep Wildcat Canyon open or to figure out something there. They did nothing. It looks exactly like the draft. So that's very, very unfortunate. The top of Twin Cone, FSR 126, is not set to be allowed for public use. And that's a really unfortunate one because that one encroached into a 3A management zone, so it was a contested route just like Lost Canyon. So Lost Canyon's 398 and Lenny's Overlook that goes towards Twin Lakes side is 398A. So if you look on the charts here, this is in chapter 3 of the analysis, the environmental analysis. They compare all of these 3 routes with one another for a laundry list of things that could negatively impact the environment if the route stays open. Now you will notice Twin Cone only has like 1 yes at the very top there. And everything else is no. So there's no negative impact anywhere. Lost Canyon has a yes here and there. And they both have this very interesting fact here on lynx habitat, because lynx habitat has been used to close a number of trails, or the perspective of gaining lynx habitat. Or motorized users having a negative impact on it. But what this says is that during summer use, there's little to no impact on lynx areas. And these trails are only available in the summer. I mean, you can't drive up there in the winter. There's no way. So basically what they're saying is they're justifying there's no negative impacts so that we can include or we can modify these 3A management zones to allow trails to happen there. But then Twin Cone's not open, and Lost Canyon is. So if they're both looked at, why is one open and why is one not? Another unfortunate closure area is outside of Woodland Park. So we're talking about winding stairs, and the several of the surrounding small spurs are all set to close through this. I have no reason why. I've been on those trails. There's no negative impacts. Yeah, they don't technically go anywhere, like to a hiking trail or to a lake or something like that, but they're heavily used by dispersed camping. They're just neat areas and neat roads, and they're not causing anything negative in terms of why they should be closed. So those are all unfortunate. There's another thing that's happened in this where there is a laundry list of seasonal closures. And some people don't care because they say, well, those roads are seasonally closed by winter and we can't get there anyway. And in some cases that's true. And if that is true, then why do we need a seasonal closure if you can't get there anyway? But in other cases, in some parts of the state, during below average winters, we can use those areas longer than in above average winters, and no 2 winter is the same. So that's really unfortunate because they're locking you out of public lands for a portion of the year, or in some cases 6 months or longer. So those are concerning. So there's most of the seasonal closures that were temporary during this process have been made permanent. There's a lot of new ones in this final record of in this draft record of decision, which were not in any of the other drafts, which is very interesting and quite troublesome. And there's some conditions ones too. So you could see that it's to protect the resource or the road, where during mud season or if there is a muddy year, then they close the road to travel so that it doesn't tear up the road. And again, on the surface, that makes sense. If land managers were to always apply objectivity to when they do these types of things, and never to, close the gate when it didn't need to be closed. And I don't know. I'm not yet ready to concede that fact. I find that when a gate is placed on a road, it is more likely that gate to be closed than it is for the gate to be open, because if we didn't need a gate, then why is it there? So there's some other troubling things in here. So we will be writing objections on all of the smaller, less well-known routes in the South Park District, on Wildcat Canyon, on Twin Cone, and some of those areas outside of Woodland Park. And if you commented on any of those areas, we encourage you to also write an objection. We'll probably do an objection video about Twin Cone and Wildcat Canyon, because those are 2 of the very popular areas that would be a detrimental loss to the off-road community. Not that these other areas aren't important, they're just not as well known. And so we'll put some information out about those in the future when we really get into fine tuning our objections and we have everything dialed in. Just want to give you some information now as in terms of what's going on. So there is some good news, there is some bad news. Could have been worse, could have been better, but here we are. I do feel good that there's no wholesale trail closures in terms of entire trail systems, outside of Wildcat Canyon. And it's not that all of the trails are closed, it's just the interconnecting pieces down by the Platte River are closed. And so that is very, very concerning, and that's where obviously the bulk of our efforts have been spent up to this point, is fighting that issue, and we're going to continue. This is not the end of that. So, yeah, look through your comments, see what you thought. If you go to the Forest Service website that we will link on here also, they listed all the comments, so it's in Appendix D, I believe, to the original record of decision document. You can go down through there. They coded everybody's comments, so they categorized them, and then they responded to them. Now, most of the time they are canned responses like, well, this was already decided in such and such process, so we're not making a change. So they say we considered your comment, but no change was needed. And really, they're just relying on their previous work, so they didn't really consider much there. So most of them are canned responses, but it's interesting to see. You can find your comment or comments if you made multiple ones, how they classified them, and then what their response was. So check that out. Use that in your objection. If you did comment on these areas, watch for our future information, and together we can keep trails open.